To get over there and make sure I had it right.
No worries.
But yeah, no, we're good at this point.
Oh, it's raining. Hello, lovely. Are you looking for me?
I don't know. Do you know anything about this panel?
No, not really.
Where's Trevor?
I'm actually calling him.
Are you Ben?
Ben?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
This is
What
Drew.
are you looking for?
This is Drew.
Drew, I was just introducing myself. Hi.
Hey, Dan, I'm Drew. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm trying to. Yep.
Yes.
I didn't go out last night anyway, so we definitely are tonight.
Okay, I'm here pretty late, so, but I can catch up.
We didn't hit the pool till like 11, right? We hit the pool like 11 last night. I think we're trying to go get drinks or something. We bought wine from Walmart. We'll probably get into later. So, do you work on site? Do you work in person?
Yeah,
Yeah,
at the DC office. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'll just say
You said.
no problem.
Yes, you may or may not know the answer. I hope you do. Do you know if any of the workshops are being recorded?
I am not sure.
Okay.
I know that we are recording everything that's happening in here, but the other workshop, give me 1 second. The other things, no. Also, I love your necklace.
Thank you. Do you have a reason to know?
I do.
That's what I was going to say. You know, they're here.
I'm CDS Communications Wait for it. The one
Got 4 mics?
No.
It's here.
Okay, Trevor has
Marvin.
Marvin, sorry.
You seen the
has
PowerPoint.
The acrylic stuff stands with everything, and then the banner. So that has to be set up over in the tent, and then we have some that can be set up here as well.
Okay, you want to sit?
I need to snap.
Let me go check with him.
There already. So, Keep an eye on it. I mean, it gets heavier after it change. But I mean, it's still pretty fun to watch it. And like I said, it's not hitting the TV.
Did Marvin,
He's good to go.
okay.
You good? I'm gonna go change the water out at the water cooler.
Okay, that's fine.
He sent the PowerPoint.
I sent it to you.
You sent it to me?
Okay, I need to send you the PowerPoint.
Yeah, I'm like,
Oh, really? We're doing that. Okay.
It's for the 12:15 though. The physical national dance instructions tomorrow?
I thought that was the other way. Their day of social action was tomorrow. I thought that they were making stuff today, but I guess they were gonna make it and do their day of action tomorrow. So, Wi-Fi password? It's farm with a lowercase f 2022.
It's 2022. They should probably already know it. We're probably using it last year.
The year before that.
Got it.
Good morning. We're asking you to please gather back so we can get started. Thank you. Thank you. Reverend Andre Wilford will introduce our moderator. So do I.
Beloved, I ask that you will report to your seats if you can. And we love you in the room. We appreciate the love that you can share. If you can proceed to your seat, that will be greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much.
Did you set that on top of my bag right behind you? Or even there? That's fine.
Instead of here, just say your stuff.
Again, Dr. Hunt mentioned, my name is Dr. Andre Wilford. I'm here to introduce our moderator for today, the Honorable Jasmine Imani McMorrin.
It was not supposed to be any rain. It's a downpour.
Jasmine Imani McMorrin is an attorney, equity advocate, and mom. In November 2020, she was elected as a council member in Culver City, served as vice mayor, and in December 2023 was elected as the first Black woman mayor in in the city's 106-year history. Mayor McMorrin sits on various ad hoc committees of the City Council, including Education, Equity, and Sustainability. She established a Culver City Community Care Workshops in the summer of 2020 to connect and dream alongside neighbors around issues that impact all who live, learn, work, and play in Culver City. McMorrin currently serves the Children's Defense Fund California as the Director of Education Equity, where she works with colleagues and in coalitions to further education equity in the state, county, and local levels. McMorrin previously worked for the City University of New York, Essex County Community College, and the University of Southern California Gould School of Law. She has also organized parents for the Culver City Community of Color Collective, Culver City Unified School District Equity Advisory Committee, and LA Parents Empowered Conference. McMorrin proudly serves in the boards of Civic Well and Clean Power Alliance. She also serves as a second supervisory district commissioner for the Los Angeles Homelessness Services Authority. She is a graduate of the Los Angeles African American Women's Public Policy Institute and the New Leaders Council of Los Angeles. McMorrin earned a Juris Doctor from Rutgers School of Law and a BA in Economics from Spelman College. She is admitted in the New York Bar. Let's give it up for Honorable McMorrin.
Good morning, Hall-Proctor. Y'all can do a little bit better than that. Good morning, Hall-Proctor. All right, just want to make sure y'all are still with us. We are staying dry this morning down in California. I didn't even think to check to see if it was going to rain today, but here we are. So we're going to stay dry and stay in community. I'm so happy to be here for this panel. We are going to get into centering young people, centering what is happening right now with our democracy and our faith communities. And I'm honored to be on the stage with some powerhouses. So we will just pass the mic on and allow folks to do a quick little 2-minute introduction of them and what we're going to talk about today. So I'll just pass them on. Start with Mary.
So first of all, I am not Rodney Jones. He got stuck in where he was run from, and so in the last few
Just
months.
hold it.
I spent 35 years doing various movement roles: organizer, activist, lawyer, and chaplain, restorative justice practitioner. And all of my work has been related to the unfinished work of the civil rights movement. I started as a death penalty lawyer in California. From 2016 to 2021, I served at Georgetown University Law School with graduates. And Georgetown University Law School graduates the second most Black law students in the country, second to Howard. And so I was part of a team that put together trauma-informed education for our Black law students because, as you know, studying the law can be a trauma-inducing experience. Right. And with the Reverend Brandon Harris, we walked with those Black law students through the years of the Trump presidency. I currently serve as the first lay executive director of Network Lobby for Catholic Social Justice, founded by Catholic Sisters 52 years ago, the year before CDF was founded. And we work on systemic change at the federal level on Capitol Hill, grounded in Catholic social teaching. We have rented space from CDF for years. They saved our ass during the 2008 when Mrs. Edelman waived our rent instead of having to have us lay off all of our folks. Every 4 years, the network mobilizes voters for the federal elections, with education education and training because of what is at stake in this election, we began earlier than ever before. So in addition to the work of education and training, we are collaborating with Face United to Save Democracy, which was really led by Dr. Barbara Williams Skinner, Reverend Jim Wallace, and Reverend Adam Taylor. We're getting full chaplains out all over the swing states, as well as more. I'll stop there.
The word is substitute. I'm Brianna Parker. I'm a preacher, and I would like to believe I'm the Black Church's favorite nerd. No. So I own Black Millennial Cafe. We're a research and data company, and we use that to train and consult and just do everything we can to make Black churches and communities more amazing. So we exclusively study only Black faith concerns and Black community concerns. So that's what sets us apart from others. And so during the last election, we were able to work as posters for Black Church PAC. And usually our data gives us something that's going to speak to the election, democracy, or something like that. We've done, we learned that in the state lecture study. And then our newest study is the social impact of Black churches in local community. And we were able to see where churches kind of found themselves when it comes to elections, voting, policy, education, and all things that matter to make communities amazing.
My name is Michael McBride. I am Negro from California. And the whole get starts, put your hands together for the great starts. I'm one of the co-founders of the Black Church PAC, Black Church PAC put on Pastor Tracy Black and so many others. Also, the Ministry of State Network, which is a national network of freedom fighters and organizers committed to ending nonviolence in Black communities, ending police terror in Black communities, activating our institutions and families into the civic engagement process and securing reparations, among other things. And so, super glad to be here and grateful for the opportunity to be here in Alex in Farm with the Children's Defense Fund. And my man, Greg, starts with this.
Alright, so y'all know I'm super excited to be here again. I told y'all they were great, so very good to see that. So we're really gonna have a conversation here, y'all. So we do have some questions, but I hope that this can be just an opportunity for us to engage around voter mobilization, critical questions regarding the call of faith communities and how we're examining past and current data and considering critical techniques to empower our faith communities. So just to kind of level set. So we'll chat for about 45 minutes, and I'm going to set me a timer right now because, or somebody could let me know from that. Either way, I think the timer would be good. I think it was chatty. Oh, they'll let us know? That looks like a certainty. Okay, all right. So we're in community this morning, and I do just want to amplify. We will have some time for Q&A. So if there's something that one of us have lifted up that you want to ask a question or delve in a little bit more, we will have time for that. I can't have for 45 minutes. So it's really important. All right. So I'm going to turn this over to Mary, who will chat a little, just do a little level set as we talk about the current dynamics and a little bit of the past dynamics that brought us into this space. And it's something that is critical for leaders to be watching as we move into this November election.
So we in the United States, we credit ourselves with being the oldest democracy in the world, right? Well, in fact, we started as a fairly limited democracy. When the United States was founded, as you well know, it did not incorporate our Black or Indigenous community or women. So we have only actually tried to be an inclusive democracy for 16 years. Okay, that's a pretty short period of time. Rights Act. So Dr. Rachel Kleinfeld, who is the Senior Fellow for Democracy, Conflict, and Governance at the Carnegie Institute, or the Endowment for International Peace, she explains that this puts the United States on par with the second wave, the countries in the world that became democracies with decolonization. Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Jones? Dr. Jones?
So while our institutions are older, our figuring out how to govern a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-faith democracy where one group is not de jure or de facto on top is still a pretty new thing for us. And we have not done the necessary evaluation of our institutions that are older than our democracy, right? We have not done the evaluation needed to make them inclusive as well. That's in the very early stages. So now to this baseline context, let's add the fact that in less than 20 years, by 2040, most demographers predict the overall racial composition in the United States will change. By 2040, it is estimated that whites will no longer be the population in the majority population in the entire U.S. And as you know, for us Californians on this panel, I think it's all of us, right? 3 out of 4. California has been like that for 25 years, but it's only the second state in the union. So no other democracy in the world has tried to become a multi-ethnic, multiracial, multi-faith democracy while also experiencing the demographic shift of its dominance, especially dominance in positions of power. White men, right? They are losing power. So in my opinion, this is not quoting anyone, decentering whiteness in this country is as destabilizing as the discovery that everything did not revolve around the earth. It is destabilizing. So that leads me to Robbie's writing late last night. Robbie Jones was writing when he couldn't get on the plane, and he said in an article, we can't let political violence be used to silence concerns about rising political violence. He said, the patterns are very clear, as is the danger of political violence, and we can't let political violence be used to silence concerns about democracy and rising political violence. You know, certain folks have gone silent since Saturday, right? So calling out threats to democracy is not inciting violence. Rather, it's an act of patriotism, real patriotism, and invites our fellow citizens to protect a society that is growing to ensure pluralism, equity, and security for all.
So as we enter children's policy and power plenary, I test for democracy with that context, which is really grounding. So thank you again, Mary. I don't know if you were wanting to respond, but based on your research, please set the context for both the past and current trends regarding the work of the Black Church in East Africa. We were able to see some very odd things in our second to this study. We were able to see that Black people, say, were leaning toward the Republican Party at pretty high percentages. But by the time we hit the pandemic, they were back leaning towards a Democrat. And that's for a number of reasons. Of course, many
we were also able to see that there was a little bit of a kink because we believe young people, we believe in our future, we believe young people are progressive, but unfortunately we were able to see that young black males in church and not in church have an issue with women in leadership. So sure, they are the future, but what kind of future are we going to create with them? So we've always imagined that it was boomers, and boomers would be your issue, but to know that young black men who have another 60 plus years on this earth have an issue with women in leadership really tilts what we think is about to happen, and it changes our messaging, or it should change our messaging when we think about it. Black churches always still hold a lot of power. What black churches and black congregants deem important is usually surprising. We realized that immigration was at the very bottom of the list of things that black church people cared about. And this is when children were being locked up in cages. Right. And it was still the last on the list of things that they thought were important. That ain't right. Education was super high. I believe it may have been coming like fifth what was important. But we learned in our newest study that black congregants are sure that their churches teach them about the voting process, but nothing happens after that. There's no policy education, really understanding what it means to push a policy, what lobbyists do, how you make changes in your community, those types of things were not as apparent. I think because of all the things we're learning, we learned that the black church is still just as powerful, but I know that black congregants are on the same page. When we look at things like Gaza, some of us are enraged. Others think, listen, black people got too many problems to be worried about what's happening in Gaza. But depending on what side you're on, you think everybody thinks that. So you think we're all on the same page, and we're not. UNC came out with a study on millennials, and they said that millennials did not want to hear about politics in the pulpit. But UNC didn't say that they didn't study white millennials. While that is true for white millennials, we can tell you that black millennials actually said they did not want to be part of a faith community where they had to divorce the truth of who they were and what's happening in the world and what they're walking through. Sometimes we jump on everything we see. A study comes out and we assume that we need to change everything in our churches because we have to stay relevant. And staying relevant is knowing who's conducting the survey and who the respondents are. So while black churches, I know, are super impressed with other organizations who do surveys and research, at some point we have to get to the point where we value our voice enough. This is not about valuing Black Millennial Cafe. This is about valuing the black voice enough to want to hear what we have to say so that we can serve our own community. Yes. So we looked up people like Black Church PAC who commissioned a study on the social impact of black churches and local community. I remember being on a call, and someone who said this is in the room, but I won't say who. We're on a call talking about Gaza with black churches. And our fearless leader says to them, the powers that be, we're having this conversation right now, and I'm not sure you're hearing us. But you'll be calling us in a couple of months with another conversation. Depending on how this goes, they'll tell us what we're going to do in the next conversation. And I don't think we actually do that enough. I don't think we use our power. We see all these articles that come out saying that black church makes the decision, black women make the decision, and as soon as we get the opportunity to talk to people in the White House, we're just so glad to be there, and we're just so glad to be food, and we're so glad to come, and we don't take the opportunity to tell them what it be like. My mom raised me to say what I have to say and assume I only get to go once. And I think that's where we have to get. We have to stop being so excited about celebrity. And get to the point where everywhere we go, we are holding up our community. We're talking to our community. parents don't want to tell you they're buying food stamps at 50 cents on the dollar because they're having a hard time eating. Because they're not supposed to buy food stamps. I heard. And so it takes us a while to get to where
Trevor,
we
which one did you just PowerPoint you just sent me? I'll say HP. Is it start with beyond child tax credit?
With the child tax credit, yes. Thank you.
Drop the mic so hard. Thank you so much for looking at we're coming to you. Can you list at the intersection of local leadership in your work? I know we were talking about young folks and telling them the truth and being honest about what's happening, but also being in right relationship as we continue to move the work forward. So we'd love for you to look at some of your work in that area.
Sure. We often say that a disorganized truth will find it difficult to defeat an organized lie, which is our way of just kind of accentuating that for many of us in our churches and in our congregational context, we have many versions of the Black community that are gathering in our church, and we have many versions of the Black community that are not gathering in our church. I reflected on Eugene Robinson's book he wrote about 11 years ago. It's called Disintegration. I don't know if you feel familiar with that book, but he talked about how there were four kind of he categorized the Black community as four particular groupings. The first, or one of the groups, he would call it the transcendent community. Those are like, he coined the Chicago Trinity: Oprah, Michael Jordan, Barack Obama, right? The affluent Black elites. How many of y'all got some Black elites in your church, right? How many of you are the Black elites? With consent, right? So today, with consent. The second group he described was the Black mainstream, which is the largest swath of Black folks, who are middle-class Black folks, etc. He talked about the emergent Black class, which are biracial, multiracial, and diaspora immigrant, African immigrant, and then he talked about the abandoned. And those are the perpetually trapped in the underclass, impoverished communities. And all four of these communities have a very distinct politics. One of our challenges, I think, is many of our churches and our institutions do not cater or appeal or structure our work around certainly the Black abandoned group. Many of us are aspiring to be the Black elites as a faith leader, as a CEO, as a leader. We want to be in the transcendent class. And many of us who are in the middle class are just struggling to make it, and we are very invested in respectability. And so the challenge for us, I believe, is how do we actually coalesce or at least create a common or at least a particularly integrated way of engaging leadership, hearing voice feedback, and also implementing that in ways that reach across the diversity of our communities and arrive at common solutions. So when we talk about organizing, we're actually talking about slowing our processes down so we can get the kind of information and data that Reverend Green and others are putting out, and figure out how do we actually now transmit that information and allow it to inform the kind of institutions that we are creating. Because if you have badly formed institutions, you will create and produce badly trained leaders. So this idea that there are lots of millennial or Gen Y, Gen Z young men who don't believe in women leadership is because they sat with men in institutions behind closed doors and sometimes in open spaces and have watched women's leadership be literally problematized, demonized, and diminished. So I think it's very important for us to keep reminding ourselves that none of us are produced outside of the community or institution, But our institution cannot be overly preoccupied with elite status. Right? We have to fall back in love with the material, incarnational nature of Black people, Black conditions, and allow that to continue to inform how we create institutions that are relevant in our current context.
So I got like the written questions out, so now we're just gonna chat. For me, my path to, I never thought in a million years that I would find myself in politics. I'm the youngest member of my city council. I'm the only woman on my city council. I'm the only person of color, woman of color, and first Black woman to be mayor in Culver City. Culver City is on the west side. Thank you. It still feels weird, y'all. But so I put that up in this space as we're thinking about children's policy and power and the test of democracy and faith, because even as we, are trying to train up young folks and empower them and through faith communities and outside and through my CDF and outside the CDF, we are in these institutions that were created by human beings, right? And we know that some of the outcomes are certainly what's designed, right? When I think about the school to prison pipeline and just, countless disproportionality that we see around health, that we see in housing, food deserts, y'all know what's going on. But how do we support and train our young folks to be in these spaces that are quite frankly hostile, that doesn't value the presence of young folks, that doesn't celebrate them being in these spaces, and how do we, I'm transitioning from, I'm still a millennial, but I'm transitioning to elder millennial. That's all right, I stand in that. It's good enough. But as we transition, how do we continue to support and center young folks and being a part of this solution and acknowledging that we are in a pretty not hopeful space right now in the context and container that we're in as a society where, while there's been a lot of political violence, I talk about, poverty is political violence, the police state is political violence, but there's another allegation of political violence that has been very recent. So as all of those things are converging around us in this moment, how do we continue to empower and engage with our faith communities and our young folks to prepare them for this evening that we are in and the importance of this evening? So it's for everybody.
We have to rethink our messaging, or actually think about our messaging. When I think about messaging to young people around politics, voting, and everything else, I think about Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will used to always have these lines, right? Girl, you must be tired because you've been running through my mind all day long. And anybody who will come through, he was ready to give him his line. Unfortunately, that's where we are. Everyone we talk to, you have to vote. Our lives are on the line. Somebody died so that you can have the opportunity to vote. These things are true, but they're not impacting people anymore. Defeat Trump? Okay, that's not impacting people anymore. At some point, we have to tell people the truth, and we know the truth, about what's at stake, why it's important to them. Listen, when you talk about people dying for the right for someone to vote, there's so many generations between that it's difficult for it to resonate enough for them to say, well, I'm out here because somebody died. We have to get to the point where we figure out what people can hear. So we had messaging during the last election, and then one of our studies comes out, and we learned that Black church voters believe at 75% that they are politically powerless. Black non-church voters in the community believe that 72% they were politically powerless. So the people who sat in church every Sunday and danced about power, and sang about power, and shouted about power, and did some flips about power, did the machine gun praise about power, did not believe that power transcended Sunday morning. don't think we pay enough attention about where people are and how things will really impact them. The way a horrible president impacts me is not the same way a horrible president impacts everyone else in my church. And maybe it's true that we don't know enough about what they're going through to tell them all the ways it's going to impact them. Someone said to me one day, I mean, we cannot last with that president because we're going to be all right. And I said, that's cute for you. For me, that's disgusting. Because I don't live in a world where I care about me being all right. I live in a world where I care about everybody being all right. And I think if we really believe that, and we really value the humanity of all people, we get to the point where we change our messaging to impact people where they are.
It's super important, I think, for us to both repent and acknowledge that we are not in close enough relationship with young people in large swaths of our community, so we don't have the right messaging because the only time any of us talk to our people are around elections. It is terrible to realize that we have an active hemorrhaging of Black life and Black injury in Black communities right next to Black churches. And Black churches, Black faith leaders are largely out of relationship with the very family members and community members who may not attend their church but certainly live a stone's throw away from that church. It is frightening to think that the messaging around voting and political engagement is being spearheaded by white men making billions of dollars, whether their messaging works or not. And we take their messaging, particularly we who lean in the Democratic progressive spaces, and we try to lay that on top of our community and then fuss at our community when the messaging does not resonate with our community. We are too in love with white people, yeah. We're too in love with them and not in love enough with our people. Because if you were in love with your people, you would spend more time talking to your people. The reality is, many of us are much more comfortable talking to politicians, police, prosecutors than you are to Pookie and Ray Ray and you are to Pookie's family. So the Children's Defense Fund is such a fascinating and important organization because for many of us, we don't talk about young people until they do something wrong. That's right. I just want you to think about this, right? We don't. I got an Instagram share with you. I'm in my church who was talking, who shared with me in the Bay Area, we call smash and grabs, particularly in cars, VIP, 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 not VIP. And so he was sharing with me the VIPing queen. The VIPing queen is a white woman who has been creating a network of stolen goods. So when young people run into a store and grab perfume and cosmetics, they take it somehow to a place that it gets given to this white woman. And she has a whole network in California to make millions of dollars on stolen goods. They never get arrested, and the face of the criminal in high crime communities across the country is not the VIPing queen. It is your son, daughter, grandchild, and we are more angry at them. Right? Then we are at the systems that all of us as adults should know better are constantly preying on our children. Why is that? Because I believe we're more comfortable in the presence of people who do not, who we aren't going to put back on the right? I just want to challenge us. You want to know a concrete thing you can do when you get home? Find the most dangerous part of your city and go talk to some young people. That's right. It won't cost you a dime. It may cost you some food. The way I went over all the knuckleheads in my neighborhood, I took them all to lunch. Literally. And And I took them to a good lunch, not McDonald's. I took them to a lunch they ain't never been before. Cost me a few $100, but it was the best $300 I ever spent as a pastor in the hood. I guarantee you, if you feed the people, they will feed you back. And I love white people. That's me to say that too. You just like, man, Pastor Mike came for white people. And stay around. I got a little hope for you.
And Pastor Mike, it's okay, you know.
I follow Jesus. I gotta love you. Jesus told me I got you. And you need to trust me.
So I'm going to go to an alternative Black church that I was privileged to be part of. Right before I was hired at Georgetown Law School, they made a commitment that a very significant amount of their first-year students would be Black. And then in that first year, they realized that all the staff were white. And it wasn't a very comfortable place for those students. And so when they reacted to their first criminal law class, as Dr. McGee knows very well, and they started having a trauma response because of all the reasons you know, they went to the white therapists. Right? How did that go? How did that go? Right? And so after that first year of failing the students, Georgetown Law School started hiring staff of color, therapists of color, and we created Black law student retreats where only Black students were together. We had Black campus ministers. And all of a sudden, by changing the facing staff for our Black law students, they started flourishing. Some of them are running for office now. And I would like the Honorable Yasmin to talk a little bit more about her journey, because it's not an easy journey to go into these white spaces, right? And flourish. And what we found is that having community, and that was part of my job, is to create the conditions for their community building. And then step out, right? And not get in the way. And it is a place that survived COVID in ways that other institutions did not. Because the dean raised $500,000 to support those Black student families. Because most of them, their parents were essential workers, right? And I could go on about the amount of deaths in the families of our first-year law students during COVID. So, Honorable Nancy, would you tell us a little bit more about how you are navigating these white institutions and obviously flourishing?
Well, that's debatable. But right here, right, one of the things that I was, and thank you so much for giving me that space, and I'm going to be mindful of time, because I'm one more question for you, but Q&A. But I feel one of the things I was taught growing up, when you belong, wherever you are, you belong in that space. Everywhere you go, God's hand is on you, and your ancestors are on you, are with you. So I'm always encouraged that even if, maybe the audience or my colleagues or even some of my student staff, they're not quite ready and thinking about, for example, summertime, what happens in summertime, our babies are out of school, we have a little mall in Culver City, and a lot of my daughter, she likes to hang out with her friends at this mall, and what happens sometimes when kids are out in the summer and they're not at our amazing freedom schools, but for freedom schools, and maybe we're our raising the freedom schools, but if they're not in freedom schools, right, so maybe they're getting into a little bit of trouble, which is normal, like their brains are not fully developed, right? In Boston, I think her name is Mayor Boo, created like a grants programs for young people, like summer programs, and these things aren't novel, they're not new, like the grant program for communities to apply and engage their young people in Boston. I quoted that to my colleagues, because it is expensive to do what we're doing right now, to engage in these systems of carcerality and locking up in-house people for just existing because they don't have anywhere to go. That horrible school decision. But
But like it costs something to maintain these systems with these horrible outcomes, right? And even to be in the room and say, like, what if we just started a program where, or maybe we do a pilot program for our foster youth for UBI, because UBI is wholly successful. Anywhere there's a universal basic income program, there are like amazing outcomes for those programs. So, but they look at you like you have like 10 heads when you suggest this, right? And it's like, what do you mean? Like, how are we going to afford this? How do we afford this $46 billion, police department in a city of 40,000 people, right? It's like unimaginable, right? But it takes people being brave enough, and I believe looking at this amazing room and all these folks in it, it takes people just being brave enough to offer another way and having enough courage and vision to believe the way that we are doing things right now does not have to be the way that it has to be. We can believe in a future that has room for all of us, that has care and support for our children and our older adults. I feel like our societies are determined by how we treat our babies and our elders. And in LA County, we're not doing a good job. There's room for us to improve, and I believe in a future that can be expansive and has room for all of us. But it's difficult. It is difficult, and particularly as I come up from the election in November, and trying to get young people and people just to be not even excited, y'all, because sometimes it's not being excited. Because again, it's a little raggedy outside. It's a little raggedy in these political streets. It's not, I feel like there was a moment in time when my daughter was a baby with Obama in 08, and everybody was so like the energy for hope and change was really outside, and it's not outside right now at this time. But that's okay. Like I want to acknowledge and name that it's okay not to be in love with our options, right? But we do have an obligation. We have an obligation to ourselves, to our children, to our communities, to engage in these systems because as raggedy as they are, this is the container that we have right now, and to make them better. Whatever that looks like, whether that's that lunch, whether that's engaging with your freedom school, whether that's, showing up in Sunday school or whatever that looks like. And I know you were talking about a youth program that's engaging, so I would love for you to share a little bit more about that, Mary, if you'd like. But it takes this raggedy democracy that we have that didn't have most of us in mind when it was created. We demand accountability from it. We demand that, and we deserve nothing less. It should work for us just as well as it works for every white man in this country. And I believe that it is possible. So, now I know that. Yes, please.
One of the things that we've also found to be effective when we're talking about voting, particularly in Black religious spaces, is to move away from language around, to insert language around stewardship, right? Like, what if we actually saw voting as an act of stewarding creation, where we are called to live, versus an act of patriotism? Because I do believe that God does not care about America any more than God cares about any other nation state. God cares about the people and the land, because that is what God created. We have too much of an investment in American exceptionalism and the narrative of patriotism that I think many of our young people are soundly rejecting. They're soundly rejecting it, and we don't have the language to introduce them into another way to steward creation. It is a reason why there are some who, through TikTok and other platforms, are making connections that we don't make about the war economy, about the environment. They see the plight of other people across the world to be similar to their plight, whether they are Chinese, African, Asian, Middle Eastern, Jewish. All these titles we create are not as compelling to young people because they are part of a global, online, virtual community. Stewardship to me is inviting us to take seriously God's invitation to care for all of creation. single issue voters may be the wrong way to talk about it, but what if we introduce young people to the act and the art of stewarding creation? So that means gun violence in my community is just as important as the mass killings happening in Gaza, which is just as important as the climate challenges happening in the southern hemisphere, as the rise in extreme temperature here in the United States, right? Like, how can we broaden the circle of concern so we're just not overly preoccupied with the White House at the expense of our homes and our homes all across the world? I think young people are ready for that kind of vision, even if some of us are not.
We have about like another 5 minutes or so. I want to make sure that we, and thank you, Councilor Michael, for lifting that. I think that's really, really important, particularly in this topic. But like as we move forward and think about engagement in our faith communities, and how we support our young people in unleashing their joy in the context of democracy, in the backdrop of what is happening right now in our country, which is serious, y'all. It's concerning. It's it's heavy. It's a lot of things all in one, and acknowledging that and looking at it. But how do we, in our various hats and roles, support our young people in unleashing their joy in the context of this democracy that we are experiencing in this point in time, whether that's federal, state, county, local, faith community, context.
I can go ahead and start briefly. I'm Catholic, and as you know, my institutional church has one issue that's preeminent in every federal voting setting. Right. For years, Network has put out a multi-issue, equally sacred checklist, because Pope Francis says protection of the unborn is important, and equally sacred are housing, healthcare, gun violence, all the things we've been talking about. And so we went and listened to our young folks, and they are most interested in healthcare, living on a healthy planet, being able to take care of their families, gun violence, and immigration. They actually care greatly about immigration, young folks do. And so we put together an equally sacred scorecard using readopting from the rights, freedom language, so that they can start speaking the language of freedom that our elders spoke during the Civil Rights Movement. And we've got 10 Catholic and Protestant faith-based colleges and universities, and we're building cohorts that we started in the spring semester. We first laid out the threat of our democracy that I gave you a little window into, but we have them do deep reading so they know the threats. And then we teach them the race class narrative so that they can speak exactly like Yasmin just did, which is, all of this is meant to divide us. And not only can we flourish, we all can flourish if we do these freedoms together. And so this group is now in the fall going to be registering all their fellow students to vote and getting them out to vote. They are lit, but they are building community on their campuses and really unleashing joy there because they really feel empowered in ways that they didn't before because they didn't have the tools. And so I just think it's inviting them in, creating the space for them to build community and giving them the tools that they need.
Faith communities, when we talk about being a single issue voter. And I think it's difficult for young people, all people, to hear one thing lifted up and to not know where they stand on that in their own faith community. Cousin, I'll do as well as I can to keep this clean. abortion is an issue. Right? But if you're in a black church, you've probably heard abortion is an issue, right? Like, don't have an abortion maybe at some point. And we're not going to hear from the pulpit, but somebody's told us we shouldn't do that. But let's say you're a teenager, you have a baby, and you choose not to get an abortion. You have this child. You have to go through all of the ridicule that's going to go along with it, all the side eyes, all the attitudes toward you. And then 40 years later, that child can invent the cure for cancer. And in a black church, you know what they're going to say? Well, she had it when she was like 14. And they never get over it. So what do you want us to do? Do you want me to not have the baby? You want me to have the baby and hear from you like, dang, I need to be consistent. And I think, unfortunately, faith communities are not consistent in things like this. So what do we do? So when we hear issue that abortion is an issue, we're so confused about what that even means in our faith community. That's not our issue. What you got next? You know what I mean? Then we hear the next issue. Well, I want to know we have to do better. We have to have people who can say, great, I don't believe in murder, sure. Why do you believe in it for police officers? Why do you believe in it for bad health care? Why do you believe in by not giving children an actual healthy education so that they can stay safe? Why do you not believe in enough to make sure black women are no longer the rising demographic in prisons, where they die and where they go there based on love and relationship? Their crimes are directly based on relationship. So we have to get to the point where we're consistent, we understand exactly what we mean, we're willing to tell young people what that looks like, we're willing to back mean people off of them, and stop saying that's just the way they are. Because we learned in one of our studies that friendliness as a congregation is so important. Having a mean person in your church is like putting a sniper in your balcony. What we believe about people. What we believe about people in tough circumstances. What we believe about people whose lives we don't understand. Then we don't have to be bamboozled by this one issue. Because we understand there's number one, much more. And number two, is much more complex than they're making it.
And to that point, you know, I still pastor in church in my free time. This is my 19th year of pastoring, and it's a painful revelation when you realize you have more new people in your church than you would like to acknowledge. And some of these new people are great tithers. They're leaders in your church. And they are consistently sniping people out of your congregation. So I remember when we started to have a significant influx of queer folks into our congregation. I'm a fourth generation holiness Pentecostal. Apostolic holiness Pentecostal. And you know what that means, you know. Wasn't nobody going to heaven, but my four family members and nobody else. The scripture said, can the righteous make it in? And it was still a question. But we realized, or I realized as a pastor, that as queer folks started coming to our congregation, you know, single parent mothers, you know, who are, you know, experiencing lots of church hurt, young men who had criminal records who came in smelling like purple and, you know, all kinds of stuff. They weren't the clean fish that every pastor secretly prays for. Like, give me them clean fish. Them fish that I ain't got to be able to put them in position and I ain't got to work. Well, it was hard to realize that I had to allow people to walk away from our church because the presence of queer folks and folks part of the justice system and folks who are not good tithers or no tithers began to have much more say in the life of our church, which impacted our politics, right? So I just think it's really important for us to just be honest about how hard it is to lead in this time. But that's why we're called to be a leader. Sometimes we have to let some people go. And mourn that and grieve that. There are a lot of folks, family members, and folks that have been with me a long time in my church, but as our mission began to get more and more justice-centered and the conditions shifted, some people just couldn't grow with that vision. But God always sends other leaders, right? And other folks to create space for them. So I just wanted to add that because I do think it's very hard to hold young people in a congregational context that ages out of ministry to young people. I mean, it's hard to hold an intergenerational congregation when, folks have competing and different political kind of understandings, but I think that is what we are called to do, and I pray we can do it more faithfully.
Thank you so much, y'all. So we're going to go into our Q&A portion. I don't know if I'm supposed to get ready. I don't know if I'm jotting things down. Wonderful, wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. So one thing that I just want to look up as we get ready to go around and have Q&A, because I know sometimes there's a resistance to politics, and I don't get involved in that, but politics is concerned about all of us. Politics is concerned about our housing, our healthcare, our streets, our parks, our education. And so if any of our elders, our young folks, it touches us, whether we are interested in that or not. And I pray and I hope that our joy is more expansive and more inclusive of the many versions of how we show up in this world, because we truly are stronger together. And I hope that is the takeaway as we move forward to November. But it's going to be a long road. It's going to be a little raggedy. We're going to say this in a prayer, and that's going to cover us, and that's not prayer. Any questions from anyone? It looks like we have one in the front. Don't be shy. We got two in the back. We have one in the front here. So I'm going to go back to the elder. I'm going to go back to the elder. Yes, welcome. What's your question?
How do you help people feeling when you talk about some process and who you're speaking to? How do you help people feel important when you are talking about solving the process, okay? And making a change at the same time. And improvement. Who are you talking to? I think we're reaching at the wrong people because we are talking about all the young folks, but you're not getting to the folks up here who are creating the problem and not making a difference. Okay? No incidents where guys shot up the police, right? But the police were part of the problem. The young man that knew me came to me and said, Miss Jones, when we were running 7 years old, with little pennies in our pockets, they took them. They took our pennies. Right? People don't forget that. They can't forget that. That's an impression on a young mind.
I see my arms like this. Okay? You can like beautiful cello on the arms. You can tell me what you've been doing. I definitely don't have an answer, but I will say that I believe the way we treat that
how we treat church. So if you get a really bad vote, like let's say they voted for you 60-40 into the church, so Baptists do candidacy and then the church votes, you know. So let's say it's a 60-40 split. That's a really bad split. What we work to do is we work to change the 60, we work with the 40 to hope they push enough of the 60 out, right? So you work with the 40 to bring in their friends and people who think like them and people who have money like them and people who appreciate you like them, and you imagine that they're going to get so big that the other group is a smaller percentage or they leave. And I think that's how we're handling this. I think we're hoping we get enough young people that have changed minds, that it somehow will allow them to be more stable, be more confident, and then they'll infiltrate systems that are corrupt. I'm not saying that's a good situation. I'm not saying it's a good strategy, but I think that's the one we're using right now.
Got one back here.
So I was really interested in the conversation around power, recognizing that with the traditional church settings, we amplify the idea of powering the power, Holy Ghost power, but it does not translate into our actual political power or people power generally. And I'm a little nervous about this question, but anyways, so I'm disillusioned within the church spaces because of that idea of limited power, but also disillusioned in progressive spaces because we spend a lot of time identifying the issue, but not a lot of times I'm talking about actionable items to address the limits to power. And my question is really centered around how do we reshape the spaces that we do occupy and own to engage in a different level of power access, thinking about like cloak and dagger operations within our settings so that those who are disillusioned and don't believe that they have a certain access to power can begin to see power in action through how we are mobilizing and conducting ourselves in the spaces that we own and occupy.
Yeah, I remember on the seminary, we were challenged to engage with Michelle Foucault's work around power. And if I remember correctly, it's been such innovative into my work. I don't remember who said it's anymore. But if I remember correctly, he talks about power is not situated in a concrete place or space, it's mounted, which just means that power is always up for grabs. Right? And the dunamis power given to us by the Spirit, I believe, empowers us to grab the power that is up for grabs for the purposes of justice, stewardship, healing, versus the way it's being used by our antagonists who are attempting to use the power for oppression. So I would say to you that the disillusionment you feel is the first step. You ought to feel disillusioned if you are not seeing the result that you want. God has placed that disillusionment in your heart as a catalyst. So what I would tell folks, when I became disillusioned, I became very seriously about creating a theory of change and a power analysis. My theory of change helps me to have an action-oriented program that allows me to be clear about how I grasp power. In our work, we say power is organized people, organized money, organized ideas. That may not flow in everyone's space, but that is how I and we in our Live Free Black Church Pack spaces, we operate with that kind of a power analysis, and it guides our steps for how then we actuate the theory of change. I believe all of us in here have the ability to grab power for the purposes of stewardship and justice, right, for the right thing. We have the ability to grab power and unleash it for joy, unleash it for peace, unleash it for healing. But we must be very clear about what is required to grab that power and to leverage that power. And so I would just offer to you, spend time in reflection, find you a community, don't do it by yourself, right? Maybe the CDF is your community, maybe you've got some comrades at home. Don't underestimate that God will place around you people that you pray for God to send you as you are disconnected.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brother Tim Jackson from Minneapolis, Minnesota, Pastor Church. There with my wife. I want to just give some shout outs and love to the panel. Thank you. It's very informative, transformative information that you presented to us this morning. My question is, as we in our context, my wife and I pastored and started a school, a Montessori school for black boys. We live in this nonprofit space, right? And we're competing against sisters and brothers that are doing similar work around justice. My question is, how do we have learned how to navigate and deal with systemic constructs and naming that, right? But how do we deal with folk who look like us, who are seated in these halls of power, making decisions, pretending like they're working for justice and for the community, but basically it's about self-preservation. So what is the strategy, what is the workaround or the work through when you're confronted with folk, Tim Scott, I named some who are working against the progress? And I'll rest with that question.
Well, I'll just say this. Tim Scott is the least of our concerns.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about Black Democrats than I am Tim Scott, to be quite frank. But I think it's really important to as my dad said, just because they're your color don't mean they're your kind. Right? If we don't have shared values, then our kind of melanin is not a guaranteed strategy to win. So I think it's just important. When in doubt, I always say organize. Just build more, power, influence, relationships. And as a nonprofit leader for a while, I try to stay in the space of abundance and not scarcity. It's very hard, but if we can believe that God created the world with more than enough, then whatever your program needs, there's more than enough out there to support it. You just have to stay with it.
How Wesley says is about church people, and it may be true in a lot of sense. Sometimes you have to allow Judas to expose themselves. Because telling on them doesn't always get it. Sometimes you gotta let them show their tail. So that other people can see that they're Judas. And so I would say, depending on your circumstances, sometimes it's good to just keep working, building power, strength, and organizing, as opposed to, holding up signs telling them who they are. If you work real hard, they get exposed.
I want to raise up Reverend Dr. Sersky Wilson, who prior to this job, was in the Plenary. And so when I have a strategy question, I go talk to Sersky. He's across the courtyard from me, and I just go have coffee with Sersky. And so surround yourself with those strategies, because there's ways through in the abundance.
So we're actually going to do our last question right now, but we're all here for the good amount of a couple more hours for some of us. But you can follow and talk to and continue the conversation. This will be our last question for the Q&A. I want to thank each of you for your contributions today. It has given me more to think about. And to say that focusing on this political crisis, while necessary,
I know.
is
It's
exhausting.
the give and take. It's either catch it or don't.
And
They can't commit to one.
the
Well, I'm doing
alarm
both.
and the actions that
See, I already
we're
missed
taking
this
around
microphone
Project
because I'm trying to catch it.
2025 is though there
But
has not always
it's
been
the
a
right idea.
project. And there has not always been a plan since this country was established. It's also alarming. I want to posit that we're not just in a political crisis, but we're in a theological crisis. And I'm more concerned about the theological crisis than I am about the political crisis. And so I'd like to know what your thoughts are about how we begin to deconstruct these notions of chosenness that put us in this place.
We're live right now.
I ask that question is because there will be less white people in 2050, but there will not be less whiteness.
I think
not a real thing.
We may need to announce that during sessions where we're not live streaming.
Yeah, we'll send it.
Maybe
that's why she wanted me to talk to you, just to let you know.
But yeah, I can.
What is our plan to move beyond these critical
to make
moments
that
where we're
announcement.
trying to mobilize
I can tell
people
Alice, but
that
is
then
that
they
the
go
what you want to say?
I need to free to the director from the and act as though that is where it's all coming from.
So here's my thought. It's been happening the whole time. Here's my thought. We are live streaming for free. So if we were not doing any type of recording, I think it would be easier to cut off because we're recording and people have already started it. I think it's got to. Just need to let you know. Yeah, no. Thank you for letting me know.
How do we create a theological construct for our churches that acknowledge that we've got the story wrong and we have to go back and do something different?
I think maybe put them can we have like buckets for them? Yeah. So people can put them back. I mean, I know say something too, but I think
when you talk about whiteness, how to deconstruct these thoughts, when we did our study, younger black people were hesitant to identify as Christian. Not because they didn't believe in Jesus, not because they fell to a black church when they went to church, but because of what it meant everywhere else. Yes. So they were able to see that their faith was co-opted or intentionally by whiteness. And for that very reason, they wouldn't identify. That's encouraging to me, to know they can recognize and say, I don't know if I would be connected to that. But what we learned was when it looks like black people identify much less, but it wasn't much less, it was the whole issue. But Latino people identify more. But the Latino people who identified more as Christian were usually Latino people who participated in, who were engaged in or members of white evangelical churches. So when it comes to that type of thought, do I know what to do? No. Do I know more about who and the numbers and where people are and what they're thinking? I do. I don't think it's, of course, impossible. But I think younger people may understand it a lot better than we think, or a lot better than others, because they said, I can't get down with that. Other than that, I believe in a fearless leader. Great chance of that.
I mean, I think your question is the answer, right? And I think it's a challenge for all of us. I think every era of the church has captured in its theological canon the struggles of that current time. And we have to see ourselves in this current moment as a continuation of an unending theological struggle for what it means to be faithful to Jesus. Too many of us approach the theological conversation as if it's a fixed conversation. And so we read largely dead white men. And we try to transpose their thoughts and revelations of their past struggle onto our struggle. This is the first generation of the global church since probably the 4th century that dead white men have not had an exclusive voice in the Christian theological conversation in the West. And so the question for us is, how do we form discipleship? More individuals in our context to trust the voice that God is speaking to them and through them through a series of formation in the historical conversation. So they don't just kind of pop up with the like revelation they got from a bad burrito the night before, right? It's really important to be grounded in your tradition, but to trust that God perhaps is raising you up for such a time as this to help bring a contextual revelation that continues the theological conversation about all the issues we care about. And I think that is, a very important call to the church. Not everyone wants that call because it's very unsettling to have lots of conversations in a conversation that you can't control. But if we can open that space up, I think it may get us closer to having this theological formation that perhaps surfaces more responses out of faith.
You know, I think sometimes questions like this, you know, in rooms go and be like, oh yes, we got to do that. But nobody said, can I sit down with you? Can we organize in the church the way we organize in other spaces so that we can at least figure it out, come closer to it, figure out who we need to partner with? I don't think that happens. So I would love to see that happen as a start to say somebody is thinking about it enough and intentional about it enough to say, hey, I'm with you. Let's figure out what we can do.
So with that, I know we are engaged in this test of democracy and faith, and so I'm encouraged with the conversations that will come out of this plenary. I want everybody to give a big round of applause for
The Heli Lodge?